Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Construct Innovate webinar series on modern methods of construction. My name is Jamie Goggins, and I'm co-director of Construct Innovate, which is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation. This is an 8-part webinar series. We're on week 8 of 8. This week we're going to focus on, or the topic of conversation is around the honest conversation around MMC, what's still not working in there. So we thought we'd wrap up the webinar series with an open discussion around what is still not working around MMC. As I said, it's part of an 8-part webinar series. The other 7 weeks, you can, if you didn't get to watch them come live, then you can go and see them on the Construct Innovate YouTube channel. There's 3 speakers every week, similar to this week. The webinar today will also be recorded and made available on the Construct Innovate YouTube channel afterwards as well. We will have 3 presenters followed by Q&A at the very end. The Q&A part will not be made available afterwards. So as I said, we've got 3 fantastic speakers this week. Really looking forward to listening to our 3 speakers and engaging with the Q&A afterwards. So our 3 presenters are Darren Devane, who's Director of Buildings at BAM UK and Ireland, and he's going to give us an honest conversation around MMC. Then we have Patrick Dunne Geraghty, who's Head of Construction in Allianz Ireland, and he's going to give us an insurer's perspective on delivering buildings using modern methods of construction. And then we have Dr. Paul Moran, who's the Techrete Assistant Professor in Facade Engineering here at the University of Galway and in Construct Innovate, and he's going to bring us through some recent research and development in MMC that's been carried out through Construct Innovate with various different partners and companies within Construct Innovate. So as I said, we're going to have the 3 presentations, about 15 minutes each, and then followed by the Q&A at the very end. If you have any questions for any of our 3 presenters, please do pop it in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen there as we're going along. So just type in your questions, and as I said, we'll deal with them all at the very end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first presenter being Darren Devane, Director of Buildings at BAM UK and Ireland, and he's going to give us a talk around the honest conversation around MMC. So over to you, Darren.
Much, Jamie. I'm just going to present. So hopefully you can all see that on the screen right there. So good afternoon. And
Darren, sorry, just before you start, will you just switch the display setting, because you're on the kind of presenter mode there. So if you go up to display setting, yeah.
Is that better?
That's perfect. Thanks, Darren.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot, Jamie. So good afternoon, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about this very timely and interesting topic. I'm Darren Devane, and I'm the Director of Building for BAM Ireland. So just briefly, I'll give you an overview of what we do in BAM for those of you who don't know us. We are a European construction multinational headquartered in the Netherlands, and we operate across the Netherlands, Belgium, the UK, and Ireland. So what do we do? So in terms of infrastructure, we cover the entire range of infrastructure sectors in Ireland, with transportation, including light and heavy rail and roads, bridge construction, renewable energy infrastructure, and marine works. On the construction side, we work in the education, healthcare, commercial, high-tech and residential markets. And I think you probably see there in the middle, we're even delivering a little children's hospital that you might have heard about, and we'll see from the photo in the middle of the slide. We also have a property division, which delivers student accommodation, amenity centres, and both high-rise and housing developments across Ireland. Finally, we have a facilities management business, which maintains schools, court buildings, universities, shopping centres, and government agency buildings. So that gives us, I suppose, an edge from running through the entire life cycle of a building or a piece of infrastructure, from design right through to the end of life of an asset. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is to give you my perspective about what's really the honest conversation around MMC. And I think it's important, first of all, to acknowledge the really successful implementation of modern methods of construction across all aspects of the construction industry in Ireland. In the last 20 years, we have shifted massively from an industry that I suppose, stick-built every element on construction sites to one where off-site solutions are now the preferred solution for us. The use of timber frame structures is well established in Ireland, and I'd estimate at this stage that approximately 70% of our housing delivery now uses timber frame solutions. When we get into the larger scale and more commercial buildings, precast concrete options are now our preferred solution, and they're used extensively in education, healthcare, industrial and residential apartment developments. And I have to say the precast companies really have adopted new technologies to push the boundaries of what is feasible to manufacture off-site. Prefabricated reinforcement solutions are now widely used, and I suppose from my perspective, we've had some great experiences with companies like Midland Steel, where we delivered 26,000 tons of prefabricated rebar on a major industrial project in Kildare for one of our customers, reducing our site numbers by about 90%. We also see a lot of M&E systems using modular pipe racking solutions wherever possible. This means there's very little stick-built solutions being implemented. Obviously, that makes for a safer and a higher quality install, reducing the number of welded and physical connections carried out on site. You see there a clip of just some bathroom pods as well, which are a great example of modern methods of construction and offsite manufacturing done really well, done to a high quality and at scale and pace. So I think it was just important to point out it's not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there is an awful lot of really good work going on in the modern method of construction space. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. I suppose we're here to look at what's gone wrong. I suppose we'll all have seen the headlines, particularly in the UK, around companies leaving the market, particularly the 3D volumetric market. In the UK, it even prompted the government to instigate an inquiry in the House of Lords, effectively asking this very question: what has gone wrong? And you can add us to the conversation as well in BAM, because while we are a main contractor, we also invested in a modular building company in 2019. We delivered approximately 1,000 homes, 1,500 bathroom pods, and a lot of construction site accommodation for our projects. But unfortunately, we took the difficult decision in late 2025 to cease operations at our factory in Cavan. So I think we have a close enough insight into what goes well and what doesn't go so well in the modular side. So what led us to take that decision, and what are some of the challenges facing the sector from my perspective? And a lot of what I will go through on this slide really relates to our experience of the 3D volumetric market. Really high upfront investment costs are certainly a significant factor. While BAM might be a large organization and able to finance that, I think for smaller organizations, trying to make that investment upfront is a significant outlay, when you don't tend to get your money back until the product is installed and certified on site, albeit there are vesting options that do come into play in certain instances. The lack of standardisation is certainly a challenge facing the sector. The certification process, once you have it, it is great, but securing the NSAI Agrimon certification is an onerous task, certainly when compared to the 2D solution. But I would say the major challenge facing the sector is the inconsistent pipeline visibility, which is a challenge across all areas of the construction industry in Ireland, not just the modular space. I think we spend a lot more time than we would like crystal ball gazing when trying to plan our business growth. We've had the National Development Plan announcement in July of 2025 with significant commitments to infrastructure delivery for Ireland, but with little granularity to allow us to plan for that investment. We finally saw some really encouraging signs from the Department of Education and Youth in the past few weeks, where they outlined their priority school building projects. They listed 105 school building projects that would proceed to tender and/or construction in 2026 and 2027, and that's a €1.9 billion investment. And this really is the type of granular detail that, if extended to other areas of the market, including the modular industry, would allow companies to plan and invest with some level of certainty that the work will proceed and with the time frame around that. Market maturity is another challenge we find. We are sometimes slow to adopt new technologies and concepts. And I think there is a perception that unless a house is built from bricks and mortar, that this is somehow an inferior product. And that is simply not the case. And while precast concrete solutions are reliable and durable, I think as a society, we really need to move away from our obsession with concrete and steel as our go-to building solutions. The bespoke demand challenge, modern methods of construction rely on more standardization. It really, we find from our perspective, it defeats the purpose of having a plug and play modular solution if you're then required to provide a wet trade finish on site. So I'm talking about, brick facades, roof finishes and the like. Transport costs are certainly an issue when we look back and we count the numbers, particularly for 3D volumetric, where a lot of what we are transporting is air compared to our timber frame solutions. And then the framing around cost is, to my mind, it's somewhat narrow-minded. When we compare the direct cost of a modular solution versus an in-situ solution, it may be slightly more expensive. However, we really have neglected to take into account the savings in preliminaries, the savings in defect rectification from site-installed processes, and the superior quality of a product manufactured in a controlled environment. So again, some of the key challenges that we have found, it does require early design freeze. When you're setting up a factory and you're setting up your equipment, this needs to be done early. So it needs to be done at the early stages of the project. It does force the design teams to freeze the design early, and sometimes that can be a challenge because I suppose again we're not making Swiss watches here. It's construction and things do change as projects evolve. No question about it. The continuous pipeline I've spoken about, which is probably, to my mind, it's the single most important factor in trying to promote the use of modular solutions. Design restrictions certainly play into this. Precise planning is another issue we've found where the integration between the elements that are constructed in situ versus the precise product that comes from a factory environment sometimes can pose a problem. The financial model I spoke about again earlier, companies trying to secure funding and the upfront costs involved in providing a modular solution can be a strain for a lot of organizations. Supply chain challenges are, I guess, no different to the rest of the construction industry. There is a demand now for construction and skilled operatives in our industry, and that is only going to become more significant as the National Development Plan starts to come to fruition with major infrastructural projects really starting to come to sight. And then the cultural change, which again is the perception in the market around what modular construction is, what are the perceived benefits and what are the perceived weaknesses of a modular solution. So in terms of some potential solutions, really government supports are certainly required to incentivize the 3D volumetric market. There are major opportunities in healthcare, education and housing, and the government needs to provide visibility of a pipeline to encourage investment. The obsession with steel and concrete, as I said, needs to be challenged. The requirement for embodied carbon assessments in public tendering will certainly focus the market to look at alternatives, and that can only be a good thing. Procurement strategies for public tendering. I know, again, I spoke about the Department of Education and Youth, and they have an impressive framework of modular school building solutions in the market at the moment, and that is really positive to see. They may need to look at their award criteria for other public tenders to reward the use of modular solutions in the bid process. How we market modular solutions, we really, as an industry, we need to dispel the myths surrounding it. We need to extol the positives and work to address the challenges that prevent it from being a successful solution for a sustainable industry. So I think that's 12 minutes. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. And thanks, Darren. Very efficient there. Covered a good bit in that presentation as well around the challenges and I suppose opportunities as well, even though you call some of them challenges, some of them you mentioned as opportunities as well for modern methods of construction. I'm sure there's plenty of questions for Darren, so please, if you have any questions, do put them into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll deal with all those at the very end in there. So we're going to move on to our second presenter, who's Patrick Dunne Geraghty, who's Head of Construction in Allianz Ireland. And he's going to talk about it from the insurer's perspective on delivering buildings using modern methods of construction. So hand over to you, Patrick.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me on. So Patrick Dunne Geraghty is my name, and I lead the construction underwriting teams in Allianz. So my presentation today is on the insurer's perspective on delivering buildings using modern methods of construction. Just a little bit about myself. My own background is I'm a graduate of the DIT, or TU Dublin, from a construction background. Qualified in quantity surveying and spent a number of years in quantity surveying and moved into the insurance area, where I've been for just under 15 years. And I look after not only our construction business, but also our engineering, our renewable power and marine business also. Allianz as an insurer in the construction space in Ireland is one of the largest construction insurers in Ireland, and we're also globally one of the largest players. Outside of China, we're also the largest player in the renewable power space as well. So just in relation to our perspective on delivering buildings using modern methods of construction, so what's the necessity? So Ireland needs an execution ecosystem that delivers cost-effective construction solutions. It has to be predictable and controllable. There has to be a readily available supply of skilled labour, and the importance relates to achieving, some of the importance relates to achieving climate targets also. From an insurer's perspective, the way we price relates to uncertainty, not necessarily efficiency. So what's the result? So when you've got uncertainty in risk, it leads to higher premiums. It leads to capacity hesitation or appetite restriction from insurers. It can lead to exclusions and limitations. So what we mean by exclusions or limitations is if there's uncertainty around a particular type of construction or a methodology or a contractor's experience in delivering that construction, it might push it outside of appetite. We might restrict what we do, or it might be a case that we need to understand it a bit better. So what we might do in that instance is we might do pre-quote surveys to try and understand it a bit better. We might have a look at specifications, and we look at where we have interacted with that contractor, not necessarily just in Ireland, but perhaps in the UK or further afield as well. It also leads to more extensive underwriting scrutiny as well. So it's a natural response to understanding and accepting risk. But what we'd like to discuss then is honestly what's still not working. So what do insurers want to see? So we as insurers, when we're looking at a risk, irrespective of what it is, we're looking for predictability. We're looking for repeatability, traceability, and accountability. So traditional construction gives us decades of claims data, and modern methods of construction don't necessarily do that. Now, that's not necessarily a negative thing as such. Just because we don't have the data today doesn't mean that we can't understand it and can't form a view on a particular type of construction. One thing that Darren mentioned just in his previous, in his presentation, was in relation to the modular housing. So we would insure a significant amount of modular housing. Initially, there would have been a bit of hesitation around that, not only Allianz in Ireland, but other insurers in the local market too. That hesitation comes from years of being used to insuring brick and block, stone and concrete properties. That move into timber frame took us a while to get used to as well, in terms of understanding what the potential was for loss. And then further, the likes of MHI, which was the company owned by BAM, which was an absolutely fantastic modular steel frame construction company. That type of construction, we actually found it really good, so there was a positive attitude towards it, and it's something that we see on a more regular basis. So just continuing on, so many methods are still in relative infancy from an insurer's perspective, and the gap is the core tension in what we're looking at. So just moving on to challenges. So the number one challenge that we have in the insurance space is data deficiency and immature loss history. So in Ireland, large-scale modern methods of construction adaptation accelerated in 2018, and again following supply chain issues in 2020 and 2021, where we would have seen traditional brick and block built properties and timber framed, we started seeing more in the way of ICF, so insulated concrete formwork. From an insurer's perspective, the challenge that we have is that we don't have the 20-year Irish performance data. In terms of behaviour and climatic conditions, including ingress of water, claims for performance can be contradicted by the accompanying certification. What I mean by that is some claims that certain materials are non-combustible might be contradicted by the fact that the certification states that they're highly combustible. Which from an insurer's perspective, it leads insurers to be uncomfortable. And then additionally, the latent defect data is quite thin as well. Additionally, we can't model loss frequency or severity confidently, and pricing rises to account for uncertainty of risk. So what do we mean by that? When we have immature loss data, when we're pricing for risks into the future, when we're looking at a risk, we look at the way it's performed in the past, and if we don't have that data, it becomes very difficult to make an informed decision. One of the benefits being part and parcel of the Allianz group is that various different methods of construction around the world, they arise in different parts of the world, and we have that to lean on in terms of understanding. So underwriting is forced to be cautious because solvency requirements demand it, and it's regulatory capital discipline. The second challenge in relation to modern methods of construction is design responsibility. So MMC can often shift risk upstream for designer-led systems, manufacturer-led specifications, and hybrid procurement routes. But in practice, PI limits can be insufficient, system warranties can be quite narrow, specifications can misalign, as I mentioned earlier, one proclamation of a material being the likes non-combustible, and then a certification stating that it's highly combustible. Things like collateral warranties can lack depth, and insolvency risk of specialist suppliers is a material risk as well. Additionally, if a modular manufacturer fails in year 6, one of the questions that we ask is who carries the latent defect exposure? In the Irish market, that question isn't always fully appreciated at the placement stage. The third challenge we have is reactivity to fire and water. So two of the most dominant claims types in modern methods of construction is one is fire and the second one is water ingress. So from a fire perspective, we see cavity barrier variability, on-site modifications, and inconsistent supervision at junctions. From a water perspective, off-site precision doesn't always eliminate the likes of transportation damage, sequencing issues, interface failures, and weatherproofing issues. So from that perspective, MMC has not yet demonstrated a reduction in this loss class, and that's where insurers are quite hesitant in accepting modern methods. Challenge number 4 is underestimation of factory risk. So modern methods of construction can centralize risk. So when we're looking at a traditional construction site, you might have 100 contractors across 100 different sites. That risk is very, very well spread. Whereas if there's a failure in one factory supplying 1,000 modules, that failure is very centralized. So it's a single point of failure. There's business interruption exposure and accumulation risk across multiple developments. If there's an error with one subcontractor, the issue is likely localized. If there's one supplier that has an issue, the issue is likely systemic. So traditional construction spreads the risk while modern methods of construction can concentrate it. Another thing that Darren touched on in his presentation previously was financial fragility of supply chains. So Ireland's modern method of construction ecosystem is still developing. We see new players, thin margins and thin balance sheets, rapid growth, which can produce governance and quality problems, limited track record through economic cycles, and construction insolvency in Ireland has a history of volatility. If a modern method of construction manufacturer fails, replacement compatibility causes a challenge, warranty recourse becomes unclear, remediation costs can escalate quite significantly, and then financial resilience of supply chains are as important as the quality. Challenge number 6 is overstated standardisation. So modern methods of construction are sold as straightforward and repeatable, whereas in reality, sites vary, foundations and conditions vary. Some sounding methods can vary considerably. Reinstatement creates hybridization and oftentimes at a higher cost. We often see part traditional and part bespoke. I just want to touch very quickly on just the reinstatement creates hybridization and oftentimes at a higher cost. So you might have a bathroom pod solution and there might be a leak in that bathroom pod. Oftentimes the trace and access is quite expensive to find where that leak is, and oftentimes the bathroom pod is taken apart and replaced with a traditional system, which leads to a higher cost than originally envisaged. Hybrid risk profiles introduce unpredictability and therefore are challenging to underwrite. When we say they're challenging to underwrite, it doesn't mean that we can't do it. It's just that we need to understand it a little bit better. Challenge number 7 then is late insurance engagement. So insurers are most frequently consulted at inception or near practical completion. Often at both of those times, the decisions are locked in, which is a missed opportunity. So we as insurers are rarely involved in the original design phase. We're often kind of brought into the fold very shortly before the project goes live. And it's a missed opportunity for us to provide contractors and developers feedback in relation to what works in insurance and what doesn't. And keeping in mind, we have loss experience not only in Ireland, but across the globe that we can feed back into that process and help you. So if insurers are engaged at concept stage and during the system selection, many coverage issues can be avoided. When your insurer is a design stakeholder, it limits issues later on. So we see the same challenges repeated over and over. And I suppose with being such a large construction insurer, we're able to share those challenges as they arise and allow you to make informed decisions. So what requires consideration? So industry-wide anonymized defect and performance data support certainty. Performance bonds aligned with latent risks. Financial stress testing of manufacturers. Robust insolvency contingency planning, and consistency of statements and certification. So earlier insurer involvement is really important, and keeping in mind we are here to help as well. So that is the end of my presentation, and happy to take any questions at the end.
Brilliant, Patrick. That's a really excellent presentation. In there makes it very clear what the insurers actually seek in terms of, and very clear statement. We price uncertainty. More uncertainty, the more expensive it could be. Interesting. Also, you talked about the insurer seeking predictability, repeatability, traceability, and accountability, which from those that would promote modern methods of construction would say, actually, we're solving those things in modern methods of construction because we have predictability because it's made in a factory, repeatability is made in a factory, traceability because we can track and trace all the way through if we have our digital systems in place, and accountability in there. So as the market matures, then they might come to more important for you guys, but because the market isn't as matured, then it makes them it may make them from the insurance perspective not the same way as people would understand it from the construction perspective. So we might have a discussion about that in the Q&A afterwards. And then the challenge is very clear. 6 challenges there makes it very, very clear from the insurance perspective where the industry, I suppose, needs to improve upon and needs to be proven in the kind of modern methods in construction for your side. So if anyone has any specific questions for Patrick, please do post them in the Q&A and we will deal with those at the very end. Okay, so we'll move on to our third presenter. So our third presenter is Dr. Paul Moran, who's the Techrete Assistant Professor in Facade Engineering. And he's going to take us through some of the recent research and development projects that are being carried out through Construct Innovate in collaboration with various different industrial partners. So over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Jamie. You have to see the slide there.
Just change it into presenter. If you go up to display settings there and change it into presenter mode, we're seeing the presenter mode. Yeah, so just swap.
Sure.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming along today. So I'm going to present to you some of the ongoing research projects that are being funded here by Construct Innovate. So I'm sure many people on this webinar has probably seen this slide before, but just to reintroduce this slide to people on what the focus of the Construct Innovate Centre is. So Construct Innovate is the national industry-led, industry-focused construction research centre. So the focus of the centre is that industry partners come to Construct Innovate with their issues in delivering their projects. Once they come to Construct Innovate with those issues, this Construct Innovate team helps to form a project based around that issue and network those industry members with experts within the academic sector to then develop up projects that help solve those problems. So the overarching aim in the delivery of those projects, or what those projects are trying to achieve, is to improve the productivity, quality, and sustainability of the construction sector. So by the industry working in parallel with academia, that's allowing our different research working groups to work together and develop up solutions that help meet the industry needs. And then after that, we develop up guidance, policy, and standards that are help to driving the improvement across the construction sector. So all that is working together so that Ireland becomes a global leader in the way that we deliver construction projects. So as part of the different funding avenues that Construct Innovate provides, so one was the seed fund call, which was ran in 2023, 2024, and 2025. And as part of those funding initiatives, Construct Innovate provided €50,000 per project to help fund the project itself, with a 20% contribution from the industry members. So then that allowed Construct Innovate to matchmake those companies with a resource or an expertise in the area that they needed to help them deliver the project as part of that. So those funding calls have gone across 3 different years. In the first year, there was 18 different projects funded out of that. And again, all with the overarching goal to improve the productivity, quality, and sustainability in the way that we actually deliver projects. Then again, in 2024, further 18 projects were funded out of that. And again, in 2025, further projects were funded. Then the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, they then helped to fund a series of different projects, all addressing ongoing issues within the construction sector. So in particular, in relation to modern methods of construction, one of the projects was looking at the creation of standardized design details for MMC builds, and we'll touch on some of the issues that that's helping to address and have already been flagged by the 2 previous presentations today. So out of all the different funding calls that have been provided by Construct Innovate, a number of projects have been funded, with some of them including the use of MMC-based systems as part of those projects. And here is a list of the various different partners that are involved in those MMC-focused projects, including research performing organizations, contractors, designers, consultants, and government departments on top of that. So again, it's academia working with the industry to deliver projects or deliver solutions that help to improve the construction sector. And it's not just this network of companies or organizations on this slide. So within each of the projects, each of these different partners will be tapping into their own personal networks, which would help to be informing those individual projects as well. So while here's just a snapshot of the official partners in those projects, they all have their individual networks that is helping to feed into the way that they're actually delivering those projects as well. So over the next couple of slides, I'm just going to talk about some of the projects that we have going on at the minute, or some that have been delivered. So one of the very early projects that was delivered as part through Construct Innovate was by Associate Professor Danny McCrum from UCD. So this was carried out 3 years ago, probably now at this point. And as part of this, the public and construction professionals were surveyed to gather their attitudes towards modern methods of construction. And the purpose of that was to help understand what was the current awareness levels across the industry and identify what barriers and drivers exist in making an MMC the correct route in the way that we deliver our construction, our buildings, or our infrastructure moving forward. So some of the issues that were highlighted as part of that project were again flagged by the lads in the previous presentation as well. Some of those are the difficulty moving away from the way that we deliver projects, so from traditional build to now an MMC-based approach. The huge role that government play in actually this marketplace being a success, so that ensuring that project pipeline, so that these different MMC companies can plan ahead and have the resources in place to deliver these projects. And as well as that, there are other issues are flagged, such as the immaturity of the supply chain, and then a kind of lack of awareness within the industry on how these actual systems work. So some of those issues are obviously still ongoing, but through the projects that have been funded by Construct Innovate and through all the various different working groups that have been set up across the different government initiatives, some of these challenges are trying to be addressed through various different projects. So one of the projects that we've funded here through Construct Innovate is a project involving the University of Galway and DRES, and the focus of that was the development and building of a community centre and a creche using mass timber and offsite design for manufacturing and assembly. So using these demonstrator buildings, the idea was to build up guidance that would help to inform the industry on how to deliver these projects, training the industry on how to deliver these projects, and then exemplar projects, demonstrating to the different stakeholders within the sector that these types of projects can be delivered successfully. So as part of that, there was ongoing monitoring to validate the performance of the buildings. And then on top of that, there was embodied carbon analysis carried out to show that this timber-based solution could be delivered in a sustainable manner and that it was meeting the Royal Institute Architects embodied carbon targets. So those projects are being built in Wicklow, and they're adopting the use of CLT, glulam, wood fibre insulation, and incorporation of green roof as part of their solution. And in the delivery of the project, I believe they're going to be delivered this year. All this design guidance has been developed up and will be published by Construct Innovate, again, to help inform the industry on how these projects can be delivered in a successful manner. Another project going on is focused on light gauge steel solutions. So one of the incoming building regulations for the industry is that we need to start assessing the embodied carbon of the projects that we are delivering to Ireland. And as part of this, University of Galway teamed up with Frame Space Solutions in County Longford to investigate what was the embodied carbon associated with their systems, and then identify potential solutions that they could then incorporate to help decarbonize their current system offering to the marketplace. Another project involves the use or focuses on 3D concrete printing. So as part of that, this project focused in on assessing whether recycled materials could be incorporated to help replace steel, all with the overarching aim to reduce the amount of steel in the way that we deliver projects, because steel is a high embodied carbon material. So all with the overall goal of reducing the sustainability or reducing the embodied carbon and making the solutions for the marketplace more sustainable. So as part of that, the project, which involved Dr. Alireza Rahimi and Dr. Boyan Gabizi, I apologize if I mispronounced them, they identified different mixtures of polypropylene and high-density polyethylene, and how much of an impact it had on the properties of the system itself to improve the delivery of this 3D concrete printed solution. One of the issues that were flagged on one of the previous calls was actually validating that these systems are going to produce long-term performance, and how do we go about de-risking that? So as part of this project, including Atlantic Technology University and G-Frame structures. This involves actually monitoring the long-term performance of the delivery of a CLT and glue lamp solution. So as part of that, they embed moisture content probes within the timber frame elements themselves and monitor the performance of the building over long term to show how much the moisture travels throughout the building elements throughout the lifetime of the project. So Dr. Conan O'Cally is delivering that project, and if anybody has any further questions about that, they can get in contact with Conan. Another project we have going on involves frame-space solutions in the University of Galway as well. So as part of that, they are considering that the way that they actually connect their MMC solution elements together. So one of the issues with the delivery of MMC systems is actually connecting your modularized system together and the speed at which that happens. So obviously, if you can improve the constructability and the speed time of actually assembling your systems, that just leads to a lot of benefits and helps to make the delivery of this solution more sustainable for the sector. So again, reducing down the cost of the overall system in terms of the amount of time it takes to deliver the project. So as part of this project, they are developing up a series of different solutions. They are then testing those solutions here in the University of Galway to validate performance, and then showcasing that this new type of connection system can be used for the delivery of the frame-space solution to the marketplace. So again, quality control was a big issue that was highlighted in the last presentation. So as part of this project, Aqua 3D, this was all about automating a quality control solution for the delivery of a 3D printed building to the marketplace. So moving away from a manual time-consuming process to track the quality control of the delivery of the system, Dr. Elariza Harimi and Puyang Gabizi from the University of Galway worked with HTL to develop up this automated solution that helped to track the thermal, that has embedded thermal sensors within the delivery of the projects, moisture sensors, environmental sensors and cameras, all with the delivery of tracking the delivery of the project, and that gave a feedback through a Power BI solution. So again, this was academia working with industry on their challenge and come up with a solution, which then helped to improve the company's delivery of the project to the marketplace. Then another ongoing project involving a series of different stakeholders, including University of Galway, CISC, Coillte, Glenforth, with the main contact point here from the University of Galway being Dr. Patrick McGettrick. This is focusing in on manufacturing a project using cross-laminated timber. All that's going to be sourced within Ireland. So the focus of the project is showcasing that a project can be fully sourced and fully manufactured and fully delivered using resources that are obtained here in Ireland. So that's using Irish grown C16 Sitka spruce. And this is to showcase to the industry that this solution can actually be delivered. And as well as that, tracking how efficiently it can be delivered to the marketplace on top of that. Then this project called Standardize. This is involves Dr. Daniel McCrum, Dr. Magdalena Hadjigucic, and Dr. Owen King. So this is a cross-collaboration between University College Dublin, University of Galway, and then the different departments, so departments of housing, departments of enterprise, trade and employment, and Enterprise Ireland. And this is focusing in on developing up standardized details for the way in which MMC systems are delivered to the marketplace, because there is such a high investment cost in actually getting Agremont certification for systems. If we can standardize these details, whereby the Agremont certification would not be needed, that would just make the delivery of like HTL solutions to the marketplace a lot more easier for suppliers, and remove that initial burden of that high investment cost in the certification process. So as part of that, they're developing up standard details, and then they're going to be testing those details and modeling those details for structure performance, fire resistance, thermal performance, and moisture performance to again validate that these standardized details can be delivered, and then creating these standards then on top of that. Then another project involving 3D concrete printing. So currently, so in this project, HDL are working with UCD. So the main contact points from UCD are Professor Kieran McNally and Dr. Moran. So as part of that project, when HDL are currently delivering their 3D concrete printed solution to the market, they print the layers of their concrete in 50 millimeter thickness levels. So the purpose of this project is to trial and assess whether that 50 millimeters can be increased to 75 millimeters, because the thicker of a layer that they can print on site, that just means that the time required to actually deliver these projects on site will be reduced down. And if they can reduce those times, that obviously leads to other benefits in terms of cost, etc. So again, it's companies coming with their challenges to academia, and academia investigating, improving a solution to help deliver a project in a more sustainable manner. And then one of the recent projects that was funded involves UCD Dublin and Evolution Innovation and eTechs. So as part of that, they are developing up a tool for helping to predict the cost of actually delivering MMC projects using light gauge steel. So taking the database of projects that have been delivered by Evolution Innovation, they are then developing up a tool or an automated system that helps them to then price up the delivery of these projects, because currently one of the barriers for actually delivering like HT projects is the conversion rate from actually tendering a project to winning it is less than 5%. So all with the focus of improving the efficiency of which they're delivering or pricing up these projects. And again, improving that efficiency just leads to other benefits as part of that. Then a timber-focused project involves wood spec. So this is a established guidebook for designing, specifying, and detailing timber in Ireland. So the focus of this project is to complete a technical review of the current guidance and then update that to represent current practice within the marketplace. So that's involving University of Galway in Coillte, and Dr. Patrick McGettrick is the lead PI here in the University of Galway. And then another project which is focusing in on procurement, so obviously which has been flagged in some of the other presentations, that not just today but throughout the webinar series, is the importance of the pipeline of projects needed for MMC to be successful. And the government need to introduce some sort of, or need to improve the way that they tender or advertise their projects, and that are helping to promote the use of MMC as part of those projects. So this project is focusing in on how to develop up some metric that can be embedded in the way that projects are advertised, so that it helps MMC manufacturers to then meet those targets and then give them, help them to then win the tenders on those bids as well. So this is just, I suppose, a quick snapshot of the various kind of projects that were funded by Construct Innovate, which with a particular focus on MMC technology. So these were funded across 6 different funding calls with 59 projects altogether. They are including 76 different PIs and researchers, and over 8 million of funding has been given out to date. And the purpose of Construct Innovate is to help industry, to help matchmake industry personnel or industry companies get in contact with academia, experts within academia, and help come up with approaches or solutions to help address their ongoing challenges. So again, maybe people on the call today are from companies that are aware of this already. Maybe there are companies that are not aware of this, but if any companies have any ongoing challenges, or I know there's a series of challenges highlighted in the last 2 presentations, but I feel companies can contact Construct Innovate. And again, we will help organize or identify the kind of resources that companies need to help kind of address those challenges. So that's either identifying funding calls that are going to deliver the projects, putting them in contact with different researchers within the sector that have expertise levels, can help deliver their solution. So again, if any companies have any of those issues and want to help identify or tap into the academic sector to potentially develop solutions, you can contact either myself or Jamie or Colin McHugh, who's the director or manager of the Construct Innovate Centre. So thanks everybody, and I'll have to take any questions.
Brilliant, thanks, Paul. Good to see I suppose you highlighted lots of different projects there around modern methods construction in there. More details, I suppose, are available for anyone if they go onto the Construct Innovate website, onto the projects, or feel free to ask any questions that you may have on the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll try and give you more information on some of those projects. So that's our three presenters, three presentations done. So we'll move over to the Q&A session now. So a huge thank you to the three presenters. So very interesting presentations.